Hey everyone, welcome to episode 8 of Wicky's Cricket Pod. This one's going to be slightly different because we've actually got some time to compose ourselves. So we'll go through the upcoming fourth test of the men's Ashes series and a quick recap on the women's Ashes, which has been far more interesting, or at least far closer than a few of the previous series from what I can see at least. Anyway, so Shane is obviously the other person on the pod, works in our team at Wicky. So Shane, you want to do a quick intro and introduce us to what we're going to be talking about today?
Yeah, sure. Hi, I'm Sushane. You've probably seen me if you watched this pod for the past 7 episodes, and I sincerely hope you have. You've probably got to know me already. I'm part of the team here at Wiki. You'll usually find me on the cricket side of things. You've probably interacted with me at some point on the Discord or on the social media. Links to all that stuff will be in the down there part, by the way. I'll make sure to put it in the video description if you're watching on YouTube, or if you're listening on wherever you get your podcasts, it'll be there somewhere down in the show notes. Um, so today we're going to be talking about. So we're recording this the day before the start of the men's fourth Ashes Test. I think we're going to start with that. That's the it's the series. It's a game that's starting tomorrow, and man, it's so nicely poised. Oh my God. So we're recording this on the Tuesday, and the England men announced their playing 11 for the game yesterday. That was on the Monday. So we already know what England's team is going to be. I think that's where we should start. We should just dive right in. The um, the big, I guess there's not really big news because we knew that the quicks were going to be rotated, and that's exactly what we got so far.
Can I just say one thing to Shane? Before we
Yep.
get into like the actual, I feel like this podcast so far has been like a momentum wrestle, just like the Ashes has been between you and I. You're trying to steer us back onto what we're actually trying to talk about, and me going on like a 45-second tangent of something that I randomly remember. But I think one big thing, and like I do a rugby league podcast by myself, right? And I can kind of sense that as much as I think I'm doing an okay job, it would be much better to do it with someone else. It's been awesome doing the cricket one with
Mm.
but I think and I was thinking like of the podcasts that I listen to or like the YouTube videos or whatever that I follow for rugby league and for cricket. I think the big one is like caring about the people more than just for what they're saying. And I think if you're watching this, you're gonna be a cricket fan, you're gonna obviously be all over the Ashes, right? But I think the big one here, oh man, from the team at Wiki, so there's Sashane and I'm based in Australia, he's based in India. We've got another person in essentially, we're having a team meeting in Thailand for a week. We'll tell you more about that when we record content from there. But we are huge cricket fans, and we're going to coincidentally, this trip to Thailand is happening exactly on the same days as the fifth Ashes Test. So to give you a little bit more context about the team, and we obviously care about cricket generally, but this fourth test is huge. If this can be a win to England or a draw, and the fifth test
Yeah.
you best believe we're going to have a bloody good time. It is going to be absolutely amazing. But
Yeah.
that's my 2 cents before we get into the actual cricket.
So that leads me nicely into my first question, which is based on England's 11, do you think it'll still be alive, or will
100,
Australia just kill them? Yeah.
100%. Like the last test with Wood playing, I was already more excited. With Anderson in for Robinson, I could not be more
Yeah.
confident that England's going to win this test. I'm extremely excited. What about you?
Yeah. I think England have picked the best bowling attack they possibly could. I think it's on. I think 2-all is definitely on now.
Yep.
Um, I think that it's something that I came across while doing my research for this show yesterday, where just keep an eye on Chris Woakes and Stuart Broad in this game because they are two fast bowlers who've done very well at Manchester recently. Excellent. It's an excellent venue for both of them. Woakes was in fact the player of the match here in the game against Pakistan. Uh, yeah, Pakistan in 2020. He took 6 wickets. He made like some 84 not out. It was a little bit like what he did at Headingley the other day on the final day. But he had like more of a role because he made 84 not out. It was him and
Um,
Butler, was it? I can't remember now. But he won player of the match for that. He steered home a run chase. England won by 3 wickets, much like they did at Headingley. So really, really keen to watch Broad and Woakes in action. They've done like this is a very good crowd for them. And uh, after all that talk, Stuart Broad will actually play 4 Ashes games consecutively. And I think it'll be him and Woakes to watch out for as England's main weapon in Manchester. I think if England are going to win the game, it's going to come from those two. I mean, there's obviously Ward and Anderson at his home ground, etc. But I
Yeah.
think given the sort of recent record that given Woakes and Broad's recent records at Manchester, given Anderson's sort of slightly lukewarm form, I think Woakes and Broad are going to be the bowlers to watch. I think if England are going to win, it's come from them. It's going to come
Uh,
from them.
I can't argue with you at all, right? And I definitely think what you said makes sense. I think the best part of that, as someone who, well, as we all desperately want England to win to keep this Ashes alive, I think the best part of what you just said is that if Broad and Woakes have done well at this ground before, and you think they're the ones to watch out for, the best part of it is then you've got the lethal spells from Mark Wood, and if he even if he's not bowling at his absolute best, you've got the economical Anderson, hopefully. And
Yeah.
that's all bowlers constantly coming at you, pressures on all the time. And then you got Ali to just get through a few overs. He got Smith and Labuschagne out in that second innings, which was huge. I don't think that'll
Yeah.
happen again, but get him like 9 days rest for those fingers, those magical fingers of Moeen Ali. And then you got Root to
Yep.
get you through a few overs. And I'm praying to Ben Stokes not to bowl himself because I want him. Oh God, I want this series to be alive and Ben Stokes to be batting at day 5 in Test 5 with the Ashes on the line. Oh my God, I'm getting hyped up already. But to get back to the point, if Woakes and Broad are the guys to watch out for, I think that bodes really well. Like I think about the Aussie batting lineup, right? Um, Steve Smith, hard to say, is not the best since Bradman. I think he's the one person that I am genuinely worried about. Like I think obviously Australia, the
Mm.
best team in the world, they won the West WTC final. I get all that. Steve Smith's the one though where like he's clearly a class above. But I just think that if you've got 4 bowlers constantly heaping pressure on him, and
Mm.
obviously if they can avoid another Steve Smith ton, I think that like this
Mm.
pressure from the English bowling attack. What about the Aussies? What do you think the Aussies will do with their team?
Oh, one thing about Smith very quickly. You mentioned like last time he was at Manchester, he made 211 and 82 in the 2 innings.
That's it.
So maybe if Australia bats first, it's Smith is a. I think I'm right in saying that Smith averages 30 in this series. Um,
That's with the
but
ton.
yeah, he averages 30 and he has a match winning 100. Like that's what's been the case with Smith so
Makes
far.
sense. 30 across 6 innings, 240 runs. Like it sounds bad, but that's still a lot of runs. So
Yeah. And who cares, right? He won you a game already. Like
mm,
he's made a positive contribution to the series. Um and so that's what I want to something that I thought was interesting about Smith. Australian team, we mentioned this sort of towards the end of the last episode, but Hazelwood has to come back in to kill the series now.
so
It has to be him for Boland, most likely. It's I wonder if Australia might do the England thing and play 4 quicks. But with the all rounder, they'll probably have 5 quicks, and maybe they think that's probably overkill.
mm.
And it's also because there's nobody in that top 6 who bowls spin as reliably as Root and Moeen. Well, the first time I described Moeen as reliable in his life,
Want to
but
bowl some leggies, doesn't
yeah,
he?
yeah, yeah. Head could bowl. Head could be the off spinner.
You got Head, you got
Um,
Smith can bowl a bit of everything. Labuschagne, again, bit of everything. But yeah, no one to go give you maybe
yeah,
10 overs.
yeah.
Yeah.
So weirdly, even though he didn't bowl much in the last game and was pretty quiet, and the fact that uh, Manchester's not really the best ground for spinners, we could actually see Todd Murphy keep his place.
Mm,
Australia could probably get away with playing him one more time. In fact, Lyon bowled 65 overs at Manchester in 2019 and he only took 2 wickets, which is pretty big. Like, I mean, it's not really the best ground for spinners.
mm.
So if there's one game where Australia want to play 4 quicks, this is probably that game.
The role of the spinner in the Aussie team, though, especially a rookie spinner, is just to give
Yep,
the rest and
yep,
it's not a
yep.
huge concern with the whole Bazball approach. And England's unlikely to face 100 overs, and they're definitely unlikely to
Hmm.
do it twice, right? But I do think, given that the WTC final and the three tests, Cummins has played all four. Hazelwood has played three of the four, I think. No, two of the four.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
Hazelwood
two
played
games.
two of
That's
the
right.
four. Starks played three of the four. And Marsh and Green both have bodies that you don't want to be trusting in a test match. So I think on the topic of the other selection, I think there's two things to discuss. For anyone that's been listening to the podcast since one of our earlier episodes, I did call that Warner would not make it to the fourth test of the Ashes.
Like
That
you will.
it's in the media, and that's one thing you got to love about Aussie media. They don't know much about what's going on overseas, but they'll definitely want to talk about it. And there's talk about them saying, "Oh, Warner might not play," and then they ask Khawaja in a press conference, "Do you think Warner will play?" Etc. Etc. I think the storyline around Warner maybe getting dropped and like a Cam Green or Mitch Marsh opening the batting, it would be amazing from a theatre point of view, and because I can say,
Mm. Or
I just
maybe even head,
yeah, I don't think they'll do that. Head's being
not head.
good
Okay.
for Australia in the middle order. They did it in
Mm.
the subcontinent because everything was going to shit. But I don't think they'll do it in an Ashes series in England. I think,
Mm.
yeah, I would love it from a drama and a storyline point of view, but I think Australia is like a little bit more sensible with their selections and not sensible is not the right word, but like a little like they won't go against the grain that much. I don't think, and I also
Yeah,
think that's
much
why
more conventional. Yeah.
yeah, convention, that's the right word for it. Sorry. And I think that's also why they'll still pick Murphy. I think like you could definitely drop Murphy and it wouldn't hurt, and you'd have Green and Marsh and opens up like a whole different like range of possibilities for like, like you have a collapse and you've got more batting and it's likely not going to aid spin. And even if it does, you've got a couple of part timers that kind of get through some work. So like it makes sense, but I think Australia will go the more conventional route and they'll stick with
Yeah.
Warner, they'll stick with Murphy, they'll just go Hazelwood for Boland. From one of the tweets that I saw of like the training photos at Manchester or whatever, it looked like Green was training with like the squad guys, like Boland and stuff. So that point,
Mm.
Green maybe not playing and Marsh being kept on. And I think if Marsh
Mm.
is kept on, I think that's a huge opportunity for England because with
Yeah.
this pace attack, and wasn't Marsh dropped on like 10 or 20 in the ton that he got? He was dropped really early, no? He was.
By
He was,
route, I think.
yeah, Dolly at first sleep.
Yeah.
So I
Mm.
think like with a high class pace bowling attack that England have, you want to see Marsh or Green. I don't care really, but like you want to see Marsh
Hmm.
barely played any red ball cricket, and I think like if Carey isn't looking as confident as he did a couple of tests ago, I think it's a real opportunity. Like you get past head and you can actually kind of roll through, especially with Wood's pace. But yeah, what do you reckon about what if I had to pick? I would want to see Warner dropped and Murphy dropped and chaos and drama. I think I'll
Yeah.
keep Murphy. What do you think?
Yeah. I think they'll stick to their formula as well. And honestly, uh, maybe my tone hasn't made it sound so good, but that's honestly okay. They
Yeah.
lost a close game at Headingley. Um, Cummins said, "Listen, we played enough cricket. We're going to lose games. We can brush it off.
Well,
It's fine." And they're fairly justified in saying so, right? I mean, uh, it's okay. They lost a close game, as this whole series has been close.
hmm,
Maybe that's a sign that like one inspired change could sort of decisively turn the series your way in such a closely contested series. But it's also maybe a sign that what you're doing is actually good enough to be competitive and actually win on two occasions.
hmm,
And maybe you could say, well, those games could have gone either way. But as I sort of floated the possibility in the last show, it's also a sign that Australia have come through at those clutch moments. And England have not in the first two games. The third test was the first time that England actually managed to do that, which is they didn't fold in the run chase once Bairstow got out. They actually
hmm,
got over the line with their batting depth and so on.
hmm.
Australia won't change, and I feel like they are justified in believing they have no reason to change. Um, Beyond maybe let's say one change, like Hazelwood, who actually bowled really well at Manchester the last time he got 6 wickets, I think, kept the runs down. Um, I think just the one change is enough to get Australia competing at full efficiency.
Sure. One thing I wanted to discuss, and like it's a slightly different way of discussing one of the points that you wanted to, which is the lower order, right? I know Moeen Ali's been
Yep.
named 3, and kind of wacky, but I reckon he'll actually come out at number 3, which is going to be interesting to watch. But
Mm.
theoretically, if he wasn't batting at number 3, and you look at Ali, Woakes, Broad, Wood. Oh god, I can't wait to see Wood bat. Wood and Anderson, right? You look at that like sort of 5 batsmen, and then
Yep.
Carey, Stark, Cummins, Hazelwood, Murphy, right?
Mm.
Who do you think would who would you expect, or who do you have more confidence in to have a better output in this test, batting wise?
Probably England, I'd say. Um, I think Woakes and Wood's batting was very encouraging. It's always like this stuff is talked about on paper, like, oh, this team looks better, but we actually watched those guys bat at Leeds,
Mm.
and Woakes and Wood definitely looked in better touch. And obviously, Woakes and Wood were there at the end to win the game. And the lower order runs thing, right? So I looked at the past few games at Old Trafford. Um, I think there might be a few lower order runs to be had at the cost of top order runs. So we might actually, depending on regardless of who's batting first, rather, we might see a bunch of early top order wickets, which means that it's the middle and lower middle orders that I think suddenly become really important from the point of view of scoring runs. I think England have that depth up to at least up to number 9. Maybe let's say Broad and Anderson, maybe they're not the most reliable in terms of actually scoring those runs, but
I think
um,
Broad did such a good job though. I forgot if it news of the third test, right? Like, I think like
yeah,
you've got Ali and Works who can obviously bat, and then you've got
yeah,
Wood who can score quick runs, and Broad who can show fight. I think that's just a lot more than you can say for the Aussie tail. I think Alex
yeah,
Carey is huge because whether it's Marsh,
yeah.
uh, whether it's Marsh or Green, we know that like
Hmm.
they can be they can be dismissed cheaply, right? But the Alex
Hmm.
Carey of the WTC final and I think the first Ashes test
Yes.
was very
Yep.
different to the Alex Carey that got hit on the head and just did not look as good. So I think Alex Carey
Hmm.
would be the difference between like a Australia losing 5 for 40 or an Australia
Yep.
getting 5 for 150 with the second half.
Yep. Agreed. Yeah, especially with we talked about Stark as being a bit hot and cold with the bat. He actually made runs in Manchester the last time as well,
Mm.
interestingly. So maybe he'll turn up at the back. We talked about how his batting might help him keep his place in the team, or at least I did. Turns out it's his bowling that's doing it on his own merits, which is fair enough.
Beautifully.
Um, and yeah, I think like Stark being slightly less reliable with the bat, uh, and Lion being out injured means it's really only Cummins I have some kind of faith in, and even that's not like you know
Again, he looked
I'd
great
not
in the
expect him to
second
tong
test.
sixes like
Didn't
gold.
look so
Yeah,
good against Mark Wood.
yeah. So, which is why I feel like England's lower order maybe just has that little bit extra. But I also think that the numbers 4, 5, and 6 will be as important because we've seen middle order runs. By the way, like Folks made 100 in Manchester the last time he played there, or the last time England played there. In fact, that was last year against South Africa, and he's still nowhere to be seen in this team. So maybe the benefit of the lower order runs will accrue to Bairstow this time. And I'm not trying to sort of shade him by saying, oh, he's only getting the benefit of good conditions. But
Yeah.
it'll
Yeah.
definitely be something to watch out for. Yeah,
Yeah, quick question. You may not have seen done any research on this, but I've heard that there's talk about rain again for this test. Is that
I
just
see. Okay.
talk, or have you heard anything? Have you checked the radar?
I I should confess I haven't looked at the weather forecast yet.
Okay. Well, I think like if you haven't, that's fine because like from what I've heard, it's like yeah, people. I think people in the media, especially in Australia, like being half a world away and horrible time zone
Mm.
away. We don't like know a lot about English conditions and the rain and all that kind of stuff, right? I will say this
Mm.
though. I think if there is rain, I actually think it helps England because A, it
Yeah.
means hopefully there's good overhead conditions, which I think definitely helps England. B, it means
Okay.
that like Bazball, they're going to go for the win. And again, I think that helps England. Just because they're already trying to play more aggressively, but this will kind of like force their hand a little bit. And I feel like Australia is designed for what Kawaja did. Was it the first or the second test? The first test, right? When he got the one
The
six
100, right?
not
Yeah.
out and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. So I think
Yeah.
like overhead conditions, the game being hurried along a little bit, like I think that all sort of help with the enthusiasm and the attacking mindset that England have. Whereas I feel like Australia actually kind of feels a little bit confused. I think Australia with the ball will be excellent. Like it's not like swing is something that, like it's not like they don't have the quick throw. They've got the best bowling attack in the world, right?
Yeah.
But I think unless there's like 2 whole days rained out, I think we'll still get a result.
Yep.
And I think
Yep.
those conditions and stuff, because it's not like England's got the technique or like the batting lineup to go bat 120 overs plus anyway. So like I think they'll
Maybe they don't want to either.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But like it'll almost force them to go even harder because this is going off script a little bit. It's something that you didn't plan on talking about. And I didn't even think about until well, I haven't thought about it for a few days. You know what I find really interesting? Joe Root, was it the first test or the second? Now they're all blending into each other. He was ramping Hazelwood for 6. That was the second test, wasn't it?
The ramps were in the 100, right?
Yeah.
In the 100 that he made. Not the format,
No, I know. Yeah,
innings
that
that he
confused me
played.
as well. Was that the first or the second test that Root was ramping sixes?
That was the first game, right? Where he made the 100?
I thought it was the first. Sorry. Yes. Okay. So what I think is really interesting, Root's gone from looking $1,000,000, ramping sixes and all this intent to like, he almost just like didn't look as confident and he didn't even try to ramp once in that third test. So I'm just wondering like what's going on? Any thoughts on the mindset shift, I guess, of Joe Root?
He matches up really badly to Cummins. I think
Played well against Cummins from memory in that first test. I think one of those rounds might have been against Cummins.
Was that off Cummins?
Yeah, he definitely did.
I thought it might have been a Boland and Hazelwood.
Yeah, sorry, it might have been more them.
Rather than Cummins. Yeah.
I don't know, man. But I just thought it was really interesting how Root's gone from ramping sixes and looking like $1,000,000 to just like kind of looking like just not the batsman that he is. Like, I really hope it's not a sign for the next 2 games because, like, if England are going to win the Ashes from here, they're going to need at least one Joe Root 100, right? There's only so many times that everyone else can go get you 250 runs plus and Root might chip in with a 40. I just thought that was really interesting because he just like his demeanor, like the dropped catch as well. Where the hell did that come from? That Mitch Marsh catch was a freaking dolly, like such a catch. Just popped straight to him. A little upsetting as well.
Yeah. You're right, by the way. He did get one of those reverse of Cummins in that first game. Yeah.
There you go. Yeah. But anyways, like that's just I hope that we're not talking about this in our next pod because that'll probably mean that Root's had a slump and he's dropped another catch and he's only gotten like we're talking about much more positive. Anyways, yeah, I'm really excited.
Just one more thing about the 4-5 about the middle order. It's the I'm not sure which team's numbers 4, 5, 6, 7 are best placed to make those runs at the moment. Had Root been in good form and not being repeatedly dismissed by Cummins, I'd have probably been more confident about England. But right now it's Smith, Head, Green / Marsh, and Carey. Who there's a good chance that they could be the ones to score runs, or Root, Brooke, Stokes, and Bairstow. At the moment, can you see a clear favorite in those 2 sort of batting units for who's more likely to score runs?
I think Australia's eggs. If I forget the fact that Marsh has got 100 in the last test, I think Australia's eggs are all in that Steve Smith basket. I think Khawaja has obviously shown the fact that he is a very good batsman, got an away runs, got 100, like 250 runs or whatever in the first test. I get all that, but I think if the pitch has more life and has a bit of movement, Labuschagn's already done poorly. Warner is done. Khawaja, I think he did really well in the first test on what was a slightly slower and flatter pitch, though. Like I can long story short, I can find faults in the whole Aussie batting lineup, but I can't in Steve Smith. So I feel like Root is clearly England's best batsman, but he just hasn't looked as confident, I guess. Whereas, like, I think English batsmen can get 30s, 50s, and 70s, and that's what England need. Whereas Australia needs someone to go big, and they have someone to go big. I'm just super confident bowling attack. What do you think?
Okay, that's a lot of faith in Smith, who's averaging 30 at the moment, which is
Yeah,
interesting. Which is kind of like, I mean, I'm not knocking that. I'm just saying
he's just a class above.
it's a good sign in like the faith of this guy to deliver when like the pressure is at its highest, right? When the
He just
moments are big.
like the thing with Smith is like, and I love doubting. Like I go through this weird phase where like someone's new, they get runs, I doubt them, they get more runs, and I have to stay quiet because they're just. But I think this thing with like Labuschagne and Warner for a lot of his career, it was always home runs, and home Aussie runs just piss me off because usually the foreign teams aren't as good. They're not as good in that conditions, and they're relatively flat pitches. And then like a Warner and a Labuschagne will get like a 200 or a 300 against like a Pakistan or a New Zealand, and it's just like I just don't take those runs as seriously as like overseas tours.
Yep.
And then you see
Yep.
has consistently delivered around the world,
Of
different,
course. Yeah.
etc., etc. Right?
Yeah. Yeah, he's
But
definitely the better test player, no doubt about
yeah,
that. Yeah.
like, no one's looking at Warner and thinking, "Oh no, he's going to score 100." He's not. I'm like, or a 40 or a 50 or whatever he's done. There's no way he's doing in Test
Yeah.
cricket at 36 or however old he is against this English bowling attack. Warner's not a threat. Labuschagne has worked really hard, but he's been dropped a couple of times, had a couple like lucky misses, and he's still
Still not done that well. Yeah.
and if the ball's moving and the pitch is just normal zip, like not doesn't have to be crazy, but a Headingley style pitch, I don't see Kawaja getting big runs either. And head is always low. So like that's why I'm saying I think Australia is more reliant now on Steve Smith with this English bowling attack and zippier pitches than England is on Joe Root, because England I think is okay with multiple 30s, 50s, and 70s, and they've got the guys with the positive mindset, the quick scoring to get there. They don't
And
need
the deeper, like the batting depth, because they have more players who can make 30s, 40s,
to
50s.
like 9 or 10, whereas Australia is like barely batting to 8. So I think that's a big difference. Hopefully
Okay.
this is what
Okay.
we're talking
I
about.
guess, yeah, like we were like, this is super interesting, and I love it. We could sort of keep going on and on about this actually.
Well,
Smith.
let's
But
move on to the women's ashes. So again, just so
yes.
being high level, like following high level, and I've been really pleasantly surprised by the closeness of the results, or the closeness of the games, and the
Yep.
closeness of the series. England were doing everything that they could to prove you wrong from a couple of podcasts ago.
Yeah.
Always shocked everyone.
Yeah.
Catch us up on the last few days.
Yep. So the last game of the women's ashes was a couple of days ago on the 16th. But the story is that the ashes are done. Australia have retained. They won the second ODI at Southampton. Only just, by the way, that was only by 3 runs. Like it's not just the closeness of the competition; it's the closeness of the results as well. We've had games decided by 3 runs twice,
Wow.
and once by 2 wickets. So like it's been close, and Australia have been very competitive. Um, it was Australia went into bat. They actually weren't doing that well for quite a while, and they got they lost a bunch of wickets. But then Perry and Sutherland turned up with the bat. Perry she came very close to 100, got out of 91. Sutherland made a 50. Um, and there was this really vital onslaught by Georgia Wareham back in the team for a while now. Like vital onslaught by Georgia Wareham in that last over. And like her late slogging eventually made the difference because they only won by 3 runs. Lauren Bell, who started off that first bowling inning so wonderfully, got Phoebe Litchfield out, got Alyssa Healy out, and came back and took another wicket as well. McGrath, was it? I can't remember now. But somebody in the middle order, Gardner, might have been Gardner actually, um, and just completely disappeared in that last over. That 50th over went for 26 runs, and that's ultimately what made the difference. Yeah, and her figures were looking okay. Like she was like some 60 odd from 9 overs, which is okay, and then she ended up on 85 from 10, uh, which which really sucks. But that's ultimately what made the difference. England started off pretty well in that run chase actually. Um, Beaumont made a 50 really quickly. She's had a brilliant Ashes, by the way. Just that double in the Test match, a couple of really vital 50s, and it's um, like they came very, very close, and the reason that they came close was because Nat Silverbrandt made another excellent 100 in a losing cause, much like in the World Cup final a year and a half ago. Once again against Australia. Uh, and yet that wasn't enough. They needed 15 of that last over, and they needed 5 of that last ball. So only 6 could have won it. I think I'm right in saying that England didn't hit a single six in the whole innings, in their whole batting innings, and they would have needed one of the last ball to get the win, but they couldn't get that in the end. So Australia won the game. They retained the Ashes. It's all still not over for England, though. By the way, they made a fist of the Ashes. They won the first ODI. They can still draw. They can still draw the series.
Yeah,
Uh, so if they win the
it's huge,
last,
right? Like,
if they win the last ODI, which is later today, I think tonight, for Aussie viewers, so they can actually go level on 8 points. And this is just the way that the scoring system works. Because if England win the last game today, and they'll draw level on points, they'll draw the series. They won't win the Ashes. They won't win the Ashes because Australia retain in the event of a draw. Um, but they would have won more games than Australia in this multi-format
yes,
series. You
yeah.
know.
Can I just
Uh,
ask, sorry,
and
when was the last time England won the Women's Ashes?
It would have been the one before that. Would have been
Ah,
not the
damn.
one, not the last one. I think it would have been the one before that. Or was that a
Right, right.
draw?
I thought it was like this big
I can't
thing
remember now.
because the Aussie women are
Yeah,
obviously like so dominant generally. I just thought it's one of those
yeah,
things where like the Aussie women have just consistently won the women's Ashes for like so many years. And okay, well, it's
yeah.
good to see that it has been shared around a bit.
That's a good question. Actually, I want to find out. I don't think I remember the last time.
Cool. Okay. Well, I'll carry us through then. While you look,
Yeah,
well, very quickly, I was also going to say the dates for the men's and women's. Oh no! I was just thinking. Sorry, the dates for the men's and women's BBL draft came out, and it's the 3rd of September. I was
yes,
just thinking, am I potentially not going to be in Sydney? No, no, I think I am. But anyways, long story short, 3rd of September, both the men's and the women's BBL and WBBL draft will be on. I think they announced it's going to be in Melbourne, I think. But anyways, that is going to be super, super exciting. We're in talks with a couple of the BBL teams. Obviously, like if you guys follow Wiki and all our stuff, we're part of the Aussie Sport Tech Accelerator. If you are in the sport or the sport tech industry in Australia, I'll see you at the conference end of August in Brisbane, which will be amazing. But we're also in talks with a couple of the BBL teams because obviously, like as fun as this cricket podcast is, we're obviously also trying to do some sports analytics work and help teams out with the draft and sort of pre and post game analysis, etc., etc. So we'll keep you updated. Hopefully, we get a gig with one of the BBL / WBBL teams over the next couple of months. And there was something else that I wanted to say about women's cricket. And the WBBL will be on in October and November, the same time as the men's 50 over World Cup. So we're just about to, obviously, Sashane's been with our company for almost a year now. He does everything that you see related to social media, especially for cricket. That's all Sashane. So we're going to get another one of Sashane, hopefully someone just as good, but to help us out. So we'll have a whole lot more content. So it's like what, mid-July now. So we're hoping to find this person in the next month or two, but it'll mean that like by, the end of the NRL season, we'll be streaming into the sort of Asia Cup and the Men's World Cup, the WBBL, then the BBL, and all the other T20 comps that, that are on around the world. It's going to be awesome to be, I guess, a lot more involved than, we
yeah,
took a big step up when Shane started with us, but we're just going to be all over your social media feeds real soon with a lot more things.
yeah, yeah. Oh, by the way, I looked this up, and I realized why I couldn't remember it. The last time England won a series and held the Ashes was 2013-14, so it was
Damn.
10 years ago. Um, so that I was a little hesitant to say that the Ashes have been shared around recently because that didn't seem right with this Australian team. But this
Yeah, well,
doesn't
that's what
sound
I was
right.
thinking. Like my original instinct was like it feels
Exactly, yeah.
like they always
I
win.
couldn't remember the last time England had held the Ashes. So like,
Yeah.
I don't think it's been
Well,
any time
it's
recently.
funny in the men's, it's kind of the opposite in that the last team to win. Sorry, I think we said this in the last pod, but it really blew me away when I
Yeah,
saw this. That the last team to win an Ashes series away from home in the men's Ashes was England in 2010-11, and Australia haven't
yeah,
done it since 2001. So that's another
yeah.
part of like my, I guess, excitement for this test is like this will be a historic achievement. If Australia goes there, wins the WTC final, wins an Ashes in England for the first time in 2001, considering all the teams that have played for
Mm,
Australia since 2001, it's a pretty incredible
Yeah.
achievement, and I just don't
Yeah.
want it to happen in the fourth test. If it's
Yeah.
going to happen, I want it to happen
And yeah.
in Thailand. That's
Yeah.
it.
and
Have some respect.
and this actually adds on, yeah, and this actually adds on to like a couple of like generally really good years for Australia, the Australian men at least.
Yep.
Australian women too, but like they always win, so it's not.
Yeah, the T20 World Cup
Because
a couple of years ago.
yeah, they won the T20 World Cup, they won an away series in Pakistan, they drew in Sri Lanka, they won the World Test Championship final, won a home Ashes, could win an away Ashes. It's going to be a pretty good sort of 2 years for the Australian men.
Huge. Unfortunately,
Yeah.
this summer, I don't want to talk down on the countries that are visiting, but I think it's Pakistan and West Indies. I think that are coming out to Australia this summer, which is just it's one of those two and maybe someone else. But I don't know. Like, it's definitely something that we'll talk about on a future podcast. But yeah, I don't know. It's just more exciting when you see like one of the big teams or whatever come down. I did go to a New Zealand Pakistan game in Sydney last year in the T20 World Cup and cheer on Pakistan
Yeah.
because I was hoping India
Yeah.
would then beat England and I would
Mm.
fly to Melbourne for India Pakistan final in the T20 World Cup, which never eventuated. But I got to say, like the Pakistani fans are absolutely amazing. So it might be fun from that
Mm.
point of view, but I don't know about the standard of cricket with the Pakistan team might be okay, but the
Test team.
women's test cricket test team playing here would just be might be a a short test or two to expect this
Yep.
summer. But no, cool. So you said the last game of the women's
Yeah.
Ashes is tonight.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
tonight. That's at
What's your prediction? You reckon England can get the job done?
Toronto.
Draw the Ashes?
No, I think Australia win this one. I think they win the series outright. I don't think England draw the series. They've made a fist of it. I mean, they've got this far. It's like I know that the positives of this series don't really make up for losing or like drawing or failing to win back the Ashes for the first time in forever. But it is a much, much better performance than the last time in the last Ashes, which was in Australia, where
Yeah.
England won no games and the only points they got from washouts. Like it is like to go from that to potentially winning more games than Australia in this year. Like and it always comes back to that test match again and again, right? Like that was the big blow that they outright lost that test match, whereas in the past with 4 day games, etc., those games had been drawn. So
Yeah.
the limited overs games had a much like because those produced results, those would decide the winner of the Ashes. Yeah, it's just. But I just want to say, like with Australia, just such a fantastic selection gambit in the second game, with everything to still to play for. England on a bit of a high, having got a bit of momentum. Australia brought in Alana King, played with two leggies, King and Wareham. Wareham made the difference with the bat at the end, slogging Bell over the leg side. King got 3 wickets in one player of the match, got rid of Beaumont when she was set,
Saw that
etc.
play. I saw that. That was a
And
goal.
yeah, it was fantastic, right? And they have such ridiculous depth of talent that they have three incredible leg spinners, like not just spinners, but three very good leg spinners.
Yeah.
Um, King, Wareham, and Perrin, also she's back from injury, and Amanda Jade Wellington. And they can just call on them at will. They can just say, "Okay, I feel like an extra leg spinner today," and yes, I got three of them waiting. So, like this is what I was sort of trying to convey when we talked about Ash Gardner, maybe like 2 or 3 shows ago, where they pick them based on what they want in the team, not because based on Gardner's actual abilities. Yeah, just like one of like our off spinner also bats in the top six, right? And she's a proper all rounder, bats and bowls. We want one of each type, so we're going to pick we're going to pick everybody who fits that bill. Teams packed full of all rounders. They have batting and bowling depth for days. Just nothing that you say about this Australian team is ever enough for just like the dominance that they have.
Well,
But one really interesting point that I
yes,
thought was I really did want to mention is that this tour has been massive for Annabel Sutherland with the bat. She's somebody who has opened before in the Women's Big Bash uh, with mixed success, I want to say. Like she's been a lot more scratchy sometimes. Strike rate's not been uh, has struggled to hit boundaries on occasion uh, for for a Melbourne Stars team. But she got a vital 50 in this game. And so I think I mentioned for a few episodes ago on the show that Sutherland has stepped into that sort of number 7, number 8 spot of a batting quick bowler, like a quick bowler who can bat. The quick bowler who's the best with the bat. And she sort of effectively replaced Nicola Carey in the same role at that sort of number 7, number 8 position. And while I thought, and while I liked Carey, and I thought Carey's contributions with the bat were useful. Like Sutherland can actually make big runs. She's maybe just that little bit extra, like she just actually has made massive telling scores on her own, like a test 100 and now a match winning 50 in a very important one-day game in the Ashes. I think that's been like a big win. Her and Phoebe Litchfield are like the big sort of Litchfield's success hasn't been quite as spectacular, but it's definitely been promising. And I think Sutherland and Litchfield are two of the big positives to come out of this Australian team that we didn't know about before.
Well, you're getting me excited about. I can't say the Ashes now because obviously there's only one game to go, and it's just such a horrible time zone for us. But you're getting me excited about the WBBL. Like I say this every year.
Yeah.
Last year was great. Obviously, when you started with us and we started doing a bit more content every single day. Like I'm so keen to watch the Men's World Cup night and the WBBL in the day. So
Yes. Yes. It's my favorite T20 competition in the world. Like just my favorite T20 competition, full stop. Yeah. And I'm just so keen for this season again. Yeah. And especially with all the changes around, right? With the new draft, with the rules for retaining players, overseas players draft, etc., all of that.
Well, I was gonna say, like with the WBBL, they play it. The shit thing about being in Sydney is that the SCG is awesome. It's just a little bit annoying to get in and out of, though. Like it's not a very convenient place to head to. But they play at like some of the more suburban grounds as well. Yeah, so I'm not sure exactly which of the grounds, but if there's any games at Bankstown or Hurstville in Sydney, I live like 15 minutes from both of those places. So it'll be freaking awesome to hit WBB.
Yeah. I'm looking at the venues now. They're playing at North Sydney Oval and the SCG.
Oh, no Bankstown or Hurstville?
Not that I can see. We might have a venue change.
The WBBL is not too big for me now. It's not in the small suburban. But awesome. All good. I'll definitely try to get to a game in the Aussie summer. But anyway, so Shane, hopefully the next time we speak, hopefully the English women have proved you wrong and they draw the Ashes. And hopefully up in Thailand and the Ashes is live and it's 2-2. Well, look, we're going to create content and podcasts and all the rest of it anyway. But oh my God, if it's 2-2, it's going to be a really, really good.
Yeah, we're going to find out soon. Later, like in the course of this week.
Awesome. Okay. Well, so Shane will get this podcast out later today. We're speaking on Tuesday, Tuesday, 18th of July. We'll have this podcast out later today. As I said, if you just Google Wicky Linktree, you'll find this podcast. You'll find our Discord, all our social media where we share a bunch of stuff, all to do with cricket and with rugby league. And you'll see a lot of fun content from us next week when we're all together in person.
Yep. And alternatively, if you want, you can just scroll a little bit, like scroll this video down a little bit more and look at the video description. You'll find all the links there in one place. It's right there for you. And we regularly update that link tree with that week's content. So it's definitely the one thing to follow if you follow nothing else.
Awesome. Cool. Thanks to Shane again. I'll see you in person next week, but we'll see the rest of you guys probably from a really, really nice background in Thailand the next time we do this pod. See you guys.
Cheers.